You have found the Redhead Family Therapy Guy and a Mic podcast, looking at mental health through a pop culture lens.
All right, we're here for another one. You've managed to find us once again, the Redhead Family Therapy Guy.
And a Mic.
And I'm John.
And I'm Michael.
The Redhead Family Therapy Guy. And that's Michael. And we have another amazing guest with us. I'm super excited about this one. I'm excited about all of them, but this one especially because Alicia is my redheaded sister. And she's amazing. And we're so glad, Alicia, that you were willing to do this with us and talk movies. So thanks so much for being on.
Yeah. So
it's
happy
exciting.
to be here, you guys.
So introduce yourself to all of we have a following. So you're going to need to, going to need to break down who you are and where you come from.
Okay. I am Alicia. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I met my redheaded brother John when I lived in Nashville. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we became good friends, good family friends.
How long have you lived in Salt Lake for then?
7 years.
And then was it Nashville just right before that? Or was it? Oh, okay.
Yes.
And what were you in Nashville for?
My husband's job.
Oh, okay.
They were here and then they left. And then I prayed them back. And they freaking left again. So
my husband's job was just a big cluster.
What does he do that he's all over like that?
He's not anymore, but at the time he was with a hearing aid company, and they kept wanting to move him around, and he's no longer with that company. Once we left Nashville, he switched companies. But every time I talk about our past, about moving, it sounds like we were in the military. Mm-hmm. It's very confusing. We were in Chicago, and then we were in White House, which is by Nashville, and then we were in Florida, and then we went back to White House. No, we went back to Nashville.
You were in Lebanon or Mount Juliet. Yeah.
Well, we were in Hermitage before. Oh my gosh, let's not even go there. Let's stop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I went down the rabbit hole.
No, you're fine. It's just, it makes no sense.
And you guys just recently moved house again, right?
Yes, we are perpetual movers. We just moved in a month ago after being in our previous house for only 1 year. We're very, very good at moving. If you need help, we're very good at it.
Professionals.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, good.
You keep going.
We have 4 kids. My husband and I, 15 to 4, 2 boys, 2 girls.
Awesome.
And I'm a certified yoga instructor. And
so how do you become a certified yoga instructor? That's really interesting to me.
I didn't mean to say certified. I normally say that for my other job. I'm just a yoga instructor. You take a course.
That's cool. So
somebody has a credential.
I remember years ago,
you get a special piece of paper.
Yeah. I remember years ago doing a continuing education class on yoga, trauma yoga.
Yeah.
And it was just really fascinating. And I've tried using it a little bit, but there's a whole process to really kind of becoming. I think there is a certification process with it.
There is.
And there's a lot of different classes. I really enjoy that. Do you do anything like that with work, or is kind of all yoga kind of centered around dealing with emotions and trauma? I'm just curious about the whole yoga scene, I guess.
Yeah, no, yoga is incredibly expansive and diverse, and there's so many different varieties, and there are additional certifications you can get, like working with those with body trauma, incorporating yoga. I do not have that. I'm just kind of your basic yoga.
Vanilla yoga for you.
Yeah. I've taught a lot of different styles, but my preference is power yoga. Right now, currently I teach senior yoga, so a lot of chair yoga.
So without jumping too far down the rabbit hole, which I tend to do, what is power yoga? That sounds awesome.
Like weights? Do you have weights or something?
You could incorporate weights. I normally don't, because I'm more of a strict yoga.
Yeah, just body only.
I like it to be strictly yoga, but no, for sure I've done power yoga where you use weights. It's just going to be more intense. It's going to be
harder.
It's going to be harder. It's going to be more repetition, harder things that you're repeating more. It's going to be harder poses.
So is it like pose? poses that are focused around strength development. Yeah.
Yep.
So versus just flexibility.
Question.
Right.
What is the difference between yoga and Pilates?
Yoga's way better. No, just kidding. I actually love Pilates.
Yoga have like a spiritual foundation versus is Pilates just purely exercise or something?
Pilates is going to be more purely exercise. Yoga is going to be a much more of a whole body.
So would yoga involve maybe some like emotional components like mindfulness or grounding type tools, where Pilates would just be more exercise. Like an exercise for physical health? Yeah. Interesting. That's cool.
But they're also very similar. There are plenty of similar poses and moves that you use in each of them that you would be familiar with.
As part of your certification, and I don't, what is it, like a national body? Is it regional based or is it philosophy based? And do those certifications involve education around the mindfulness aspect versus just the poses and that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, like the philosophy?
No, I mean, yes, I can. I'm not great at that part.
Your version is fine.
We know nothing, so anything you say will sound.
You're gonna wow us no matter what you say, Alicia.
So I remember lots of the things I studied are like the chakras, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much chakra based. It's very much based on the power of your breath. Breath is like, there are some definitions of yoga that is just means breathing. Yoga means breath. So if you're breathing, you're doing yoga, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
mindfulness focused breathing.
Yes.
So essentially it's doing that with these different poses, which gets you focused on the body and grounded.
Yes.
And different poses open up or are focused towards different chakras.
Different chakras, right? Like a heart opening pose, right, is obviously focused on your heart chakra.
So it sounds almost like it's training your body to maybe have greater control over like your limbic system and your amygdala,
your parasympathetic nervous system.
That's really cool. So that's probably why it's so good for trauma also then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's so cool.
Have you, Alicia, listened or read the James Nestor Breath or Breathe? I never know which is the correct
way to say
it.
Book. Is that
the Yellow Book? I listened to that about a year ago. I've listened to it twice, and when I first listened to it, I really almost was like, I need to go all in and get really serious. And I keep wanting to circle back and give more attention because I really feel like there's so much that needs to happen around breath and grounding and mindfulness to not get pulled into fight or flight, which always activates anxiety or an anger explosion with a spouse or a kid or whatever. And so I've wanted to go more down that direction. And have you felt, since you certified, I know it's been a little while because I know we've talked about it before. Do you feel like this has opened that up for you? Do you feel like since you've been more and in being an instructor and that it's opened up that dimension for you?
Yes. So it's been actually really interesting because I have focused on power yoga primarily. Recently I have been going outside of the power yoga into more of a gentle yoga practice for various reasons, but I have actually noticed, so even though I've been doing yoga for 10 years or whatever, as my life is evolving, I have evolved my practice along with it. It's like this natural thing that has happened where I have noticed that I need more gentle yoga in my life. I need more staying in poses longer, right? And teaching myself to breathe through like discomfort, not pain, but to kind of breathe through sensations of holding those poses, right? Instead of power yoga is a lot faster and it's not as mindful, you know what I mean? Like it is, but
you're thinking about exercise, you're thinking about strength.
It's more about like getting a really nice workout, which the other stuff is too. But, but anyways, I have noticed that, and it's a really common thing that you'll hear when you're in a yoga class is breathe through this. Your first instinct is to pull out of the pose, right? Or it's uncomfortable, so you want to get out. And so it's very common to hear a yoga instructor say, sit in this learn to breathe through it.
So much wisdom.
That obviously translates into real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have noticed such a change in that. And just being able to be still, I think is one of the greatest gifts of yoga, is just learning to be okay being still on your mat and just being present in that moment right now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's crazy how such a basic, simple idea. I mean, I'm 45. I've been a therapist for like almost 15 years or whatever. And it's crazy how like there is so much of a need to do that, to be okay. And like to learn to be able to do that, to be okay, especially in this world where we've got so much shiny things to give our attention to and to be distracted in so many different ways. It's so interesting and so cool to hear you talk about that and to really express that.
So I have a quick question on that before we move on. But so like John or I, or just anyone who might be listening, if we wanted to start to explore yoga, is it something that we just have to go find like someone teaching yoga, or are there online resources that we could start with? Like what would be the path that we could follow that might be the easiest way to start to get into it for those who might want to explore that a little bit more?
That is a great question. And my answer is always YouTube. And I actually do exclusively, my whole practice is from YouTube.
Do you have like your own channel?
Awesome.
No, I don't. But like, that's where I do my yoga, is from instructors on YouTube. I mean, I've been to studios. I've done hot yoga. I've done Bikram. I've done it all. But for me, the thing is, the thing is, you don't have to spend any money to do yoga.
That's so cool.
If I can throw out one channel that I'll tell anyone to start with, like any beginner,
I'll make sure.
Okay, it's called Yoga with Adrienne. She is lovely, and her motto is "Do what feels good." It's kind of like her catchphrase, and it's like her trademark kind of thing. She's very, very popular. She has a bajillion followers, and it is just loving and light and
that's goodness. Her YouTube channel name. I'll just make sure.
Yoga, Yoga with Adrienne.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure I've heard that before.
Okay, she is pretty popular, and she is perfect for beginners. Like
awesome.
Perfect.
Do me some yoga. Okay, I have a question now. You had mentioned earlier that when I was asking about the certification part, you're like, oh, my other thing. I don't remember the exact verbiage you used, but you referenced kind of like something else. So what's this other thing that you have going on?
And that's why I said certified when I said a yoga instructor, because I'm used to saying I'm a certified intuitive eating counselor.
Oh, cool.
And I've been doing that for 3 or 4 years, actually certified.
And is that certified? Has that become an organization, a national organization?
Yeah.
Tell us more about that background and about that.
Intuitive Eating is a book that came out 20 years ago, and the authors are 2 anti-diet dietitians. And so Intuitive Eating has basically become, what's that, like, a TM. What is that thing called? Where you
trademark?
Have it is like a trademark. And so those 2 dietitians actually created a program where people could get certified as intuitive eating counselors.
Oh, cool.
And I actually took it through them. Like she was my.
And what made you pursue that? What made you decide to get into intuitive eating and pursue that?
Yeah. So intuitive eating, just kind of like a quick background, because most people think I'm a nutritionist of some sort, or I'm going to tell them what to eat. And it is the opposite of that. Because it has the word eating in it. You just assume I care about what you eat. I do not care about what you eat. It's all about your relationship with food, and your relationship with your body. So it's a 10 principle philosophy that helps you rid yourself of diet culture, accept your body size, accept and respect yourself, and basically learn to live your life free of those shackles of poor body image and
so that all that shame message that we internalize in our culture, which you just can't escape.
You can't. So I was in the thick of it. Since I was in college. I mean, probably earlier than that, if I'm
for sure.
Really, really thick disordered eating. And that was just normal. That's what everyone did, right? Like if you're not, you're always working to get yourself smaller or eat healthier or whatever it was. And so I actually went to go visit a young friend of mine. She was probably 16 at the time, and she was in an eating disorder residential treatment center. Mm-hmm. And I went to go visit her, and they were reading Intuitive Eating, which is pretty common for residential treatment centers to read that. But I had never, ever, ever heard of it. And she showed it to me, and it was like so God-given. I went home and started reading it, and the light bulbs went off in my head, and it was just cool. What I needed to free myself of this horrible burden that I'd been carrying around, and it had been, ruining my life. So I practiced intuitive eating for a while and for a few years, and then I decided to get certified.
That's cool. So this book was being used in like an adolescent age residential program. So I'm assuming it's a pretty, like, it's not a difficult book to read. Like if anyone wanted to pick it up, they could probably get through it. And it's pretty understandable.
Yes, very clear and very universal.
And and so how do you do that for like a job? Is that like people you just like do a individual, or is it like classes you offer? Like how does that work?
Yeah. So me personally, when I was I've done a lot of group classes for it, where like it's a 10-week thing because there's 10 principles, right? So we did that. And then COVID hit. I was doing a lot of individual counseling then too. So COVID hit and kind of, threw all of us for a loop. Yeah. Lots of people have a very big social media presence, and they do mostly virtual and online things. I'm not a big social media girl. And so there's an
good for you, by the way. Good for you.
Well, it just doesn't fit my personality. I've tried. My husband's like, don't you want to build your business? And I was like, not if it means I have to get on social media.
Michael and I struggle a lot because like we love doing this podcast, and we know that like people aren't going to hear about it if we don't do social media stuff. And so we both try to like do a little bit or whatever, but it's not.
Yeah, like, it just doesn't, it doesn't feel like me. It's just not for me. So luckily I have the fortune of not having to hustle to get clients. I just do it on the side for whoever
kind of come your way.
Yeah. So lots of referrals.
You're going to get a billion referrals from our podcast.
There's
we'll put your information on there though, for sure. We'll have Alicia's information in our description section. Yeah.
You DM me and I definitely look at social media a lot. I'm just not posting on it.
I do too, honestly.
Yeah. DM me and I will help you out. I'm on an intuitive eating directory that's like, on their website for intuitive eating. So that's how people find me also. So I just do it virtually now.
You have 4 kiddos. You like yoga. You do intuitive eating. Coaching or you're certified in that. So those sound cool. I like my job, but I don't consider it necessarily like the fun things I do. Are there fun things you do, or is that fun to you? I'm not saying it can't be fun.
You're good.
But
you're good. That's a great question. Thank you. No one's ever asked me, what do I like to do? It's always about work and kids, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I love TV. I love
We're going to have a great discussion with our second part.
So I love tennis. I play tennis or pickleball, except I prefer tennis.
Dude, pickleball is like, it's getting serious. Dude, we've got some folks that play church. It's actually really fun. And
it is like super fun.
There's some guys that I know that play, and they're like, I hopped on and played, and I've got like decent athletic skill, and these guys were no freaking joke, and I was like, what in the world just happened? Like, it's crazy. So pickleball's fun. That's cool.
It is exploded. My favorite thing about pickleball is that it does clear up the tennis courts a little more because people have moved over.
Oh some other things.
So I appreciate pickleball for that because my tennis courts are more empty. But my husband and I we try to play weekly.
Tennis? That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you guys were doing that. That's really cool.
We've been playing tennis since we were married. I got him into it. And it's really fun.
Let me just say a little pause. Britton is one of the most wonderful human beings on this planet. Britton, Michael, you would love Britton, and he would absolutely love you as well. He is a fantastic, just down to earth, loving, just awesome guy. And it's so sad that he is in Utah and not around, because I would love to. He loves to just do all kinds of cool stuff. He's always down for anything. He's super fun. We worked together in some church responsibilities and stuff, and I freaking love that guy. So I'm so sad that you guys are in Utah. But
I love him too. I always say, like, we have a great relationship and a great marriage, and it really is because of him. He's just so easy.
He's so chill.
Love. Yeah, he just makes it so easy. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
He just loves to have fun too. He's just a fun
he
guy.
Is always up for anything, and he's so handy and smart. He knows everything about, like, he knows. He's just like, he is really
guy.
Really
he's
cool.
a find.
Cool.
Sorry, it's a little outtake there. What else do you do for fun, Alicia? Sorry.
No, you're good. I don't know if I have any time. Let's see, TV and tennis and lots of yoga and lots of walk. I love going on walks. My favorite thing right now is watching my son play soccer, my 10-year-old. So I was a competitive soccer player, played throughout high school. And my son, my oldest son never liked it and didn't get into it. And then my oldest daughter was not good.
Is your oldest still staying with baseball? Was his latest kid?
He is just, that's a whole nother story.
Bloated onto something else. Is he into something else now?
He's not into anything. He's just, it's burnout, I guess. They always talk about that burnout when you get, hot and heavy at a young age. But my 10-year-old is into soccer and has been for a couple, since he was 4, but really playing competitively now on a club.
He's the goalie, right? Is he doing goalie? Is that what Britton told me?
Yeah, he's the goalie, which is so fun. I was not the goalie, but watching my child, I know you shouldn't, I know that's a thing where, I'm not trying to live for him. How can you not?
We're parents. You totally.
But, oh my gosh. I have a kid that plays soccer, and he plays year round. And so there's at least once a week I get to watch him play, and it just makes
That's so cool.
So
that
happy.
Is fun.
Yeah. Jack did wrestling. He just started wrestling, and he's gone full on, dude. He's gone full on. And his first regional singles meet, he placed third.
That's cool.
In his first meet?
Yes. Well, not his first meet, but
regional.
His first season.
Yes.
His first season. So at the end of the season, they did singles. And he did
still.
third. And his goal next year is to be, he's like, I'm going to be the champion. He's like, I'm going to be champion. So I was like, hey, if you're serious, you should train. You know what I mean? You should really train. Yeah. And so I laid it out for him. And this year, he's been hardcore, dude. He's been out, he went out for a 5K run today in the 35-degree weather. Yeah. He's out there,
he's ready. That is really, it's so fun to see your kids. Your
kids get something.
Do stuff and commit and
find something.
Excel.
Find something and get into it. How about your little daughter? What is she into something? What is she doing?
Which one? The youngest or my 12-year-old?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You've got the daughters in between the boys, and then your youngest one. I was thinking of your 12-year-old.
She's a hardcore dancer. That's the one who tried soccer, right?
Yeah, I remember.
He wanted to, but she's just, and I was not a dancer. So the idea of being a dance mom always frightened me.
That's a lot of body image stuff. Are you talking to her about that all the time?
Yeah. You know it. We are. So she dances competitively, and it 4 nights a week.
Yeah, Britton was saying that she does a ton.
And she wants more. She would dance every night, as long as she could. But it is the most expensive thing that we pay for. So she gets what she gets.
So then TV, tell me a little bit about TV. You said,
oh my gosh, I love it.
Love TV. So are there certain shows you like?
Oh, just everything. I mean, it was a joke. My mom used to call me the couch potato growing up. I just love it. Have you guys seen Ted Lasso?
I haven't watched it, but I've heard that I should.
You should watch Ted Lasso. How has Nicola not seen Ted Lasso? It's set in England.
What's the back? Oh, is it
the whole show's in England.
Which
Apple TV.
Oh, Apple. That's
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why.
Oh, you have to get Apple.
We don't have Apple. So.
Come on, John.
Get Apple.
This reminds me of my youngest daughter. She, if she could choose anything to do, it would be to watch TV. Like awesome. My other daughter gets so bored and wants to do stuff, but Felicity, no, she'll sit and watch TV.
How
all
old
day.
Is she?
She is 6.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
She just loves it. Movies, shows, she doesn't care. She's like, I want to watch TV. And then today she wasn't feeling good. So she was like, oh, I need to stay home. Yeah. It's like, are you really sick? And she's like, well, I could watch TV.
Yeah. Okay,
I'll feel much better.
I love that. Can I put a plug in for TV watching? Because I know it's kind of demonized a little bit and like, don't watch so much TV and don't spend so much time in front of TV. But I gotta say, I watched a lot of TV. I still got really good grades. I got a college degree. Do you know what I mean? I played.
You have a good family.
Soccer. I
You're not a derelict of society.
Exactly. And you know, my little brother, who watched just as much TV as me, has a PhD. He's like a hardcore overachiever. So I just want to say, anytime a parent starts worrying about their kid watching TV, I always say, no, it's fine.
Well, this day and age, I'd almost rather my kids watch TV than spend time on social media.
Right,
like I'd be like, watch a movie. Like sit down and watch a movie. Don't get off of TikTok or whatever.
Experiences. Yeah, movies are.
It's interesting.
I'm sorry, Michael.
I did a continuing education that was on just like self-care. Mm-hmm. And this was years ago. I can't remember the name of the guy that did it, but it was a 2-day self-care training. And he focused a lot on activities that really relax your prefrontal cortex and really kind of get you rejuvenated. So you can go. And one of the big ones he mentioned was TV. Movies, television, either or. And so I'm always a big component with that with clients to say, hey, it's okay. If it helps you recharge and it helps you feel better, then it's fine. It's not a waste of time.
My wife is
she loves her shows.
She is no freaking joke. She's been my wife can freaking binge, man. Like I can do like a couple episodes or 3 episodes, but she wants to watch 6 episodes.
A pro.
She's like, and she's been rewatching Bull. He's like the court consultant guy.
The old Bull.
She's watched it. She's watched it and she's watching it again. She just puts it on. She just loves that show.
She found Bull. Where was it?
What are we watching it on? It's Netflix? On Amazon Prime, maybe.
Oh, it's Amazon. I was like, because it's hard. It's that's so random that she was able to find that. You know
I don't know what show you're talking about.
Yeah, it is old, like from my childhood.
Old. No, not that show. No, this is he's a consultant for people,
yes, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, the panel, the people that make the decisions in courts, your peers.
Yes.
And he is like
he's a jury selector.
There you go. Yeah, jury
consultant. He helps
consultant.
He helps like the defense like weed out. Yes. Okay. Yeah. That is Bull. I know what you're talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, she falls towards the crimes. Yeah. She falls towards anything. Like she gravitates towards crime things.
Got it.
Like and then she's also behind that been watching the old school original CSI again. So she's been redoing those ones because we don't have I don't think we have a current new show that we've been watching. We watched Wheel of Time, and I was going to jump into Boba Fett, but Michael, after the first one, he's like, you might want to just wait till they're out so you can binge them all, which is what I did with Mandalorian. I didn't watch Mandalorian week to week. I waited till they all both seasons were out, and then I binged them all.
It's so much more fun that way.
It's so much more fun.
It is kind of more fun. You don't have to wait, and it's on your timetable, not theirs. There's something very satisfying about that.
That's our universe. Michael and I have talked so many times about how different of an age we live in that you can do that, right? Because when you were a kid, if you missed a show,
you weren't there.
SOL for you, buddy.
You're done. Yeah,
you're done.
We planned our lives around shows. So when I was growing up, Seinfeld was our show. Seinfeld, I was like a hardcore Seinfeld, like I could quote anything, I could tell you anything about Seinfeld. Not so much anymore because I stopped watching it. But now my husband, but I would plan, it was Thursday nights. I had to be home on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
I would not miss an episode.
Seinfeld night, man. No dates, no hanging out.
My husband and I have been watching it because they released all the seasons on Netflix. Did you see that?
We're not currently subscribers, so we might have to go back.
So starting from season 1, episode 1, and it has been the most fun.
Pretty good.
Anytime we have like 25 minutes, we're like, let's throw on an episode. It like makes me so
My
happy.
kids have worn out The Office, Parks and Rec, and the guy that pretends to be like a mental guy, but he's just really smart. What was that? Psych. Yeah.
I saw that.
My kids have worn, they know the names of the episodes. They'll go back and watch their favorite episodes. It's crazy. Yeah. It's hilarious.
It's so good. It's like there's something so, it brings people together. It's like a common ground. It's
something to laugh about. Yeah. Well, Michael and I obviously love shows because we talk about movies all the time. I have another question though. Before I wanted to go back and ask you an intuitive eating question. So like, what have you gained most from, like, you obviously are passionate about this. You said it was a defining life moment for you. You became certified. So like, what's the principle about intuitive eating that's been so meaningful for you that you think like people need to hear and understand? Like, is there I know there's 10 principles you mentioned, but is there something core of why it rocked you so much and why it's so important and passionate for you?
Yeah. I think what rocked, there was a lot, and it's a learning process. It's actually so interesting because it's very similar. I always compare it to a yoga practice, right? Like, yoga is a practice that you will do for your whole life, and it is not linear. It will ebb and flow, and it will move, and it will grow and evolve with you. And the same thing is true of intuitive eating. It is really just, at its foundation is a relationship between your mind and your body, and a trust that you build. This whole thing where most of my young life was listening to everything outside of me
tell you what you should eat,
tell me what I should be eating, tell me how I should look. And that really, we were born intuitive beings, and that everything everything we need to know is already inside of us. Everything we need to know to eat and to take care of ourselves is already there. If in simplest terms, when you need to pee, right? Because your body lets you know.
That's great.
You know when you need to eat. You already know when you need to eat. That's what hunger is for, right?
So do you think then, if I can just pop in, so to the degree that you would acknowledge is that there are people that are not eating in a way that is, or maybe I'm wrong in how I'm thinking about this, so correct me. But we can see unhealthiness, and we can see aspects of people getting caught down. Is that a tenet of it, or it's just learning to be more intuitive in a way that gets you to a place of health?
Yes. And health, I always put health in quotation marks. I did it earlier. I will do it again because it has been hijacked. It's been hijacked by diet culture.
I hear you.
Because they're trying to say health equals how you look, right? Or health equals your weight. Okay.
Right.
So health is going to look different for every single person. And there are parts of health that we have zero control over.
Sure.
It's just true, right? We've been led to believe that we can manipulate everything, and if we do this, we can cure this. And for me, trying so hard to manipulate my aesthetics in the name of health, and it going so far into some like a clean eating compulsion,
right,
was actually so detrimental to my health.
I hear where you're coming from on that.
My emotional health, my mental health, my spiritual health, my sense of well-being. It was so I sacrificed all other aspects of health in the name of, a number on a scale. And so the intuitive eating, when I read it, it was like, ding, 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 my family's great, but even in my family culture, it was kind of unspoken that smaller is better, that you should always be trying to look better. And so it was like, I had never realized that I could let it all go. Mm-hmm. I honestly, and I know that sounds so weird, but it was like this book gave me permission to let it go and to let go of all my food rules and to silence the food police in my head. And to let go of all that guilt and that shame, because when I see people out there that may not look healthy or may not be making healthy choices, I have so much compassion for them, because we live in this world with.
So there is a sense of healthy then in the domain of intuitive eating, because and not in an offensive way, but like, if you just were a person that were inclined to just like eat Twinkies all the time, like. That's not. Yeah. That's not good for you, right?
Yeah,
and so.
Yeah.
Right. Again, I'm just trying to understand, right? And so I kind of
feel like intuitive eating is more like it's a strength-based, really approach to understanding that you have value and worth regardless of these things, and so really coming to maybe understand your value and worth to. Your environment, your world, and realizing that other things don't. So I feel like a lot of shame reduction. I feel like a lot of strength-based approach. Yes. And it seems like it's more about your emotional health and value than maybe it has anything to do with like what we might call a diet or food or
I guess what I'm trying to like work out as I'm hearing and trying to understand, the principles that undergird this is this. I guess there's a way, and maybe I have some programming that I need to undo in my own head, but like I think of, my appetites, and I think that there are appetites that I have that are good and healthy and for my growth and can move me in a direction that will allow for peace and harmony and good feelings. And there are appetites that I could feed, or I see individuals feed appetites that are very destructive.
I think it's
maybe I'm generalizing that beyond food, and I guess it has a relation to types of things that you could eat, I suppose, and or maybe not, but just that notion of appetite. And because I guess I'm uncomfortable with the idea of just feed the appetite that feels good, right? Because
I think what she's saying is you question your definition of a good appetite or a bad appetite more so than what the appetite is. It's questioning, is this something that's really because I want it, or is it something because I feel like pressured that that's the way it's supposed to be? Like, if you feel like, oh, this appetite is something that's good, well, is that because it's really good to you? Or is it because of cultural context that has made that appetite seem like a good thing, but maybe it's not actually good for you? Is that what you're talking about with it? Or
educate us, Alicia?
No, I love that you guys are working through this. So first and foremost, food. I understand there's different types of appetites. Food in general on its own is not a morality issue. Food is not moral. There is nothing. Food is food. It is not good or it is not bad. Food is food. And so when we make it a moral issue, that's when the guilt and the shame comes piling on, right? Oh, I've been so bad.
But there could be food that might be not good for my body, right? Like if, let's say I'm allergic to something, like that's not. No,
for sure.
Right?
If you're allergic to someone, don't eat it. If you're allergic to something, don't eat it. And if you're allergic to someone, stay away. Yes, stay away. Absolutely.
Well, but maybe I'm over being general, right? But I'm principled thinking, right? And so I'm thinking, well, there is things that could have adversely affect my body, and it's good to intuitively be aware of that, right? Because if I have a peanut allergy, then but my body's probably not going to be speaking to that notion. But I like that notion, or I like that.
But you're not saying I don't eat peanuts because people have said it's bad to eat peanuts. Right. I don't eat peanuts because I have an allergy to peanuts. And I think that's kind of the intuitive eating is about a questioning why am I feeling that I can't do this or can do this. It's more about understanding what's pushing that and unhooking from whatever preconceived notions are there, and just realizing that I'm of value regardless of what others might think or say.
And when you can get to that place, and it is very much enmeshed, this body image and food, right? Like they're not separate. They are very much connected. When you can get to a place on that body image side where you realize you are inherently worthy no matter what your health is. That's another thing I want to throw in there. Health. You don't owe anybody health. I'm sorry, you just don't. You don't owe anybody an explanation about your health or what you're doing with your body. That is your body, and I'm a big believer in body autonomy, which is intuitive eating is also. So, but when you can get to that place, which is actually a lot harder to do than getting to the place where you don't moralize food anymore. I probably do 30% of helping people, ditch food rules, stop the food police, like allow themselves all food, allow themselves unconditional permission to eat. And then the rest of the 70% is helping them accept their body size and accept who they are at the moment, like that there's not a better version of them somewhere.
I love that.
That they're inherently worthy no matter what their body looks like. And that acceptance. So when you can learn to accept that, which is what you're referring to, Michael, right? And know your inherent worth, all that other stuff really fades away. Like, because now you're making choices about your food based on your internal needs, right? Because you're looking at your body as something to take care of and to love and to respect. And you want to feel good in your body. And, for some people, they may have some sensitivities to foods. If that's a legit sensitivity, then I'm 100% okay with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's been a lot of what I've been doing myself in like the last 5 to 7 years. And I've discovered that how I eat, and I don't think I'm outside of the moralizing food. I think I'm probably very much stuck in that. But like, I definitely have noticed that when I eat different ways, I can really feel good or really feel bad. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely have noticed when I'm indulging, and maybe that's not the right word, but eating certain types of food, I can feel run down, completely out of energy, and not because of the moralization of food, like I don't feel good, and I've changed some certain things, and I've felt more awake, I felt more liberated, and so it's an interesting idea, but I think for sure I have a lot to work on to get out of the idea. I'll have to ponder it, but like, of the moralization of food, that's a hard one, because like, how can you not, right? Because you're told like, you got to eat this before you have dessert, and all that kind of stuff, because there's this notion of like, your body needs certain types of food to be healthy, right? And it's but our idea of what healthy food is hijacked, because I don't think that like the food pyramid is an indicator of a healthy, balanced diet, you know what I mean? So
I think this is a really interesting conversation, because for me, it's called intuitive eating, but I don't really hear anything about food. I hear it's an emotional, it's not about what you eat. Health. It's about connecting to your roots of a divine presence. Like you have great worth, you have great things to offer regardless. And so for me, it's really interesting, because intuitive eating doesn't really sound like the eating part, like the food part stuff, like what we're talking about, or what you're talking about, John, really has little to do with it. It's more about seeing your own potential and having that come realized. And through that, then maybe having a new perspective on food, like physical health. But I think physical health is just one part of intuitive eating. It sounds like it's more of a holistic approach to your emotional well-being, and also reducing shame, really your perspective of yourself. I don't know though, that it sounds interesting to me.
No, I know. Yeah. And it, so when I say someone like, I don't care what you eat, and I genuinely do not care what you eat, how much you eat of it, like that is not what I care about. I care about your emotional reaction to that.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
So I care about neutralizing that, so that that eating can be a satisfying experience, a pleasant experience, a way you take care of yourself. And then you can, and to nourish yourself, right? So you can go on and actually live your life's purpose.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so it's not bogged down. When you're a person with disordered eating, it is a full-time job in your mind. It is, when can I eat? How much can I eat? What can I eat? When am I going to go work out to burn that off? What workout am I going to do? if I'm going out to eat with friends, oh crap, like what am I going to be able to eat at this restaurant? I got to research ahead. I got to figure out exactly, I got to have a plan. Then it's I restricted so much, I'm going to binge because that's what our bodies are going to naturally do when they don't get enough food.
Yeah.
I'm going to binge, and then I'm going to be in a downward spiral of depression and shame. And then I'm going to get back on that restriction wagon again to account for that binge. And it's all going to happen again, right? It's this cycle. Yeah, and it's this cycle that it's so consuming.
Well, and it's like food is so much of and food is so much of like what we do like in our families and celebrations. And so it's
fun.
Really, it's really, I mean, it's if we have all of these unhealthy aspects of body image and American culture and eating, it's a really difficult thing to kind of unhook. So, I'm sorry, Mike.
It's really interesting because we have, I don't know if there are currently any of them, but I remember years ago just having a lot of the different like weight loss shows.
Yeah.
And
horrible.
Yeah. And the interesting thing was, it was always most interesting to me when, I mean, they would dramatize stuff, of course, but when you would see some of the, like, I don't know what they're called, coaches or the health people or whatever, focusing on, or they're trying to focus on some of the emotional health.
Yeah.
And it sounds like I always thought, like, why didn't they have like a therapist? Like, why didn't they show like them healing themselves? And then the weight loss, I feel like would come more natural. If weight loss was needed. Well,
if that was going to be a side effect of it, right?
Exactly.
And it may or may not be. It doesn't matter because
and I always thought, and that's what I feel like I hear you saying with intuitive eating, is the eating part is just part of the title, I guess, but it sounds more like it's focusing on the emotional well-being. And I've always felt like if you have good emotional health, then it will affect a lot of aspects of your life that will bring you in tune with greater meaning and peace throughout your day and throughout your life.
What do you find is the when you're working with someone and helping them to understand this, what do you find is the most troubling thing to get them over? And what do you see as one of the key principles that unlocks them changing the way that they relate to their natural appetite for food?
Yeah. So interesting. The hardest thing, I think I alluded this to earlier, is to accept their body size as it is.
It's such a hard one in our culture, man.
We're so fat phobic. It's not even funny. Like, we're so stinking fat phobic, and like we moralize people's bodies. And so, I mean, it's, I could do 5 podcasts. We could talk all night on this. Like I get so bothered. Yeah. I mean, I get so bothered. And, the diet culture industry is $72 billion a year.
Wow.
They've been around. Yeah, it's massive. They have been around forever. They know what they're doing.
Well, and
I'll
everything,
take just
and body,
a percent of that.
Yeah.
Well, and body is so much about like what car you drive and which clothes you put on your body. And like, I mean, body is in everything that they try to sell, because of how it affects relationships, feeling wanted, feeling valued.
Yeah.
It's
about teaching my clients, like, body image work is not an external job. It is strictly internal. It is an inside job. It is no diet, no amount of weight loss will get you what you're looking for if you don't do the work inside. It is purely internal work.
And does yoga coordinate or come together well with that? It seems like it would. I'm not an expert, but
yoga. Yeah, no, you're totally right. You can't help it. Yoga is all about going inside.
It's interesting.
Yoga is all about internalizing thing. And
I have a deep desire to understand more of like the chakra thing in regards to whatever spiritual understanding I have, about who I am in the world I live in. And there's something about chakras that forever has kind of attracted me, and has been interesting to me. I've done research at different times, at different things, and read different spiritual websites. And there's something very, I think, meaty there that is a part of our, who we are on the spiritual side of things in the universe or whatever. And so there's a part of me that's really drawn to want to understand that more and kind of go down that rabbit hole. But
yeah, it feels like a really great resource, doesn't it? Like a really great tool of something you could tap into internally. And yoga is a really great avenue for that, just to teach you about that. So if you're looking for like chakra yoga, just if you're curious, she's called the Journey Junkie on YouTube. And if I'm looking for chakra, I go to her. She does practices that are focused
Journey yoga.
On,
say it again. Journey what?
Journey Junkie. The Journey Junkie. She does tons of practices. Like she'll have a heart chakra yoga, right? Or a third eye yoga or things like that.
I've always been really, I don't know if it's like my interest in like D&D or that whole like fantasy world. There's something about that's always been just really interesting to me.
I think like this is going to be like sound really deep and profound, but like when it comes down to it, like all the answers are inside of you.
Yeah, I totally think.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's already in there. Like we have intuition for a reason. So we need to stop outsourcing, looking for wisdom and answers out. I mean, I'm not saying in all cases all the time, right? But
well, I'm going to go to Yoda. Okay, Yoda. Don't you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna go. I think it's interesting because I wonder if it's both, right? Like I wonder if it's like, yes, I agree that the intuitive, the way to find peace is about unlocking and connecting with you. You know what I mean? I absolutely. But I also, as a human development, bachelor's and as a marriage and family therapist, like the importance of others and relationships. We need
help, yeah.
Right. And so, to me, I see the intertwining of these things, but it's interesting too, though. Like, I mean, one of the questions I'll do all the time with clients when they're stuck and I'm trying to get them to talk about what's going on, they'll be like, I don't know. And so I'll say, it's so interesting how easy this question almost always works. Well, if you had to guess and you were going to theorize about what it is,
right?
And then they say it, and then they go with
already.
It. Like they get like just jump over the hurdle. It's really interesting. Like almost every time it works.
I think that, and I'm not trying to like be obvious in this segue, but what we're talking about now, when you talk about internal and then you talk about maybe there's external factors that contribute, I think the movie that you chose is a good example of external relationships, but also internal. And I love the dialogue, right, that you have throughout this movie where it's him talking. I can't remember what is his name.
Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
Oh, but what's his name in the movie?
Yeah, and we can call him Hugh. Will. That's right.
Will. Yeah.
I like how they have this combination of his and then Marcus's internal dialogue throughout.
It's one of the few movies that does internal dialogue well.
Yes, I thought that same thing. I was like, this is brilliant. This is really good. Yeah. It's so clever.
Tell us about why you chose this movie and
the movie title too.
Yeah. Okay. About a boy. About a boy. I looked it up. It came out in 2002. So 20 years. I thought that was really cute that it's 2022 and we picked a 20-year-old movie.
20th anniversary. You're welcome, About a Boy.
I know. I thought that was great. So I was thinking about that because I came home from my mission in 2022.
In 2002.
You mean 2002? You didn't just get
What
home,
did I just say? Oh, sorry, 2002. I just came home. I've had 4 children. Yes, in 2002. And I started watching this movie as a single lady, just in college. And I thought it was so deep. I thought it was just, it has everything. It has humor.
It does.
It has, I cry, I laugh. It makes me think. The sympathy you have for all these characters, everyone's kind of like, you can see everyone's different point of views, right? And you just sympathize with, or empathize maybe with all of them. You can relate to, I feel like I could relate to every
very relatable characters for sure. Yes. I think it's fantastic, like how blatantly just dishonest he is.
I know.
I'm just going to pretend I have a kid so I can find some single mamas to shag, because that's a population I haven't tapped into yet.
Right?
Like,
he was so excited.
It's just like, I'm like, wow. Like, wow.
Like the all the what's I don't know what's the differences between the shallowness and the vainness versus the depth, of other people, and then how he really does have, like, he's oh my gosh, how he starts to have that depth, and how it changes him and how it scares him. And
I think my favorite part about this movie is you have kind of this trend, or most love stories that are like this, that kind of shallow character comes, or maybe they're not always shallow, but they're just kind of oblivious, and they eventually come to a point where they realize, they have this realization moment that, oh, this is the love of my life. And I love that in this movie, his realization is that Marcus is his. It's about friendship and connection, and just a really an unconditional true love. It's not about physical nature. It's and that, I think, is such a huge thing for this main character that we're following. And I love that the movie makes it about that and not about the is it Rachel Weisz?
Rachel Weisz.
Yeah,
it's
not about that. It's about Marcus and him, which is such a beautiful thing to me. I love that about
this. It was so human. It felt so human.
It did feel so human. And I love how that really proliferates, where he just shows up on his doorstep and just kind of pushes his way into his life. And they just kind of hang out. Like, they just kind of hang out. Like, you know what I mean? And like, they just watch TV, and there are these silly moments, it's the montage of like all the different days. Yeah. Because it was kind of around that TV show, right? Like, Alicia, to go back to one of the things that you love about TV is like, you just sit there and kind of bond. They weren't necessarily having deep conversations, but one of the things that Marcus really, I love that, when it like broaches the whole, Hugh Grant's like, I should help this kid or whatever, and he talks about it, and all Hugh Grant can do is drop an expletive, and
oh my gosh, and how much that boy needed that.
Yeah, exactly, right, because it was this like validation. Like this adult is like, dude, I can't even freaking hang with that. Like, I can't, like, freak.
That's and so I love moments.
Me too. Like, it was that moment, and then just the sweetness of Marcus pushing himself into Hugh Grant's life, and then they're just, but the thing too is I connected with that too, because part of what my friendship, like one of my best friends growing up as a kid, like Roger, like we definitely had these things we talked about and contended with, and ventures that we had, but there was a whole part of our friendship that was like, you just hung out in my house, you know what I mean? I was like watching Arsenio Hall at like 11 o'clock at night or whatever, you know what I mean? Like just being,
there's comfort
just
in
being, just kind of being, and I loved how the movie portrayed that as kind of the catalyst of how that kind of happened, right?
And I love that. So that validation scene between Marcus and Will, I love how they played it out to where Will or Marcus, the young boy, after Will says I think he says like the F word or something.
Yeah, he does.
It's like, and I love how they have Marcus in that scene make the comment of, I don't really know why he said that, but it made me feel better. And it's just that idea of how much we can do. We don't have to do a lot to help someone. We just be there with them in it.
Well, because Marcus didn't. I mean, Marcus
didn't example of that.
Yeah, because Marcus didn't. Because like Hugh Grant didn't do anything crazy for Marcus. I mean, I tried to take him out, buy him shoes, which backfired or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was just time. It was just time, and like being human, right? Like listening or whatever.
I love how they're both like Marcus and Will. I think they get along so well because they're both kind of just straightforward, kind of say what they're. But I think emotionally or from a maturity standpoint, they're probably about
exactly
equal,
the same level. Like that's just it. Yeah, they're exactly. That's why the friendship works.
Yeah,
and I love too because it's like, well, especially too now. I think I was more horrified by like, there's this boy just hanging out. She's like, "What are you doing with my son?" And he's like, "What are you suggesting?" You know what I mean? Like he's like showing up at my doorstep dressed like some hippie. Like, what do you? I love how just. Scene. Yeah,
I actually love that scene in the restaurant.
Yeah,
she confronts him, and Marcus's voice is in the right, like he's doing the diet, like
cowabunga,
and he's like, how is it that my mom had it so wrong?
Yeah,
like,
that
he's
was
watching
beautiful.
This. I thought
that is cool.
That
Great
scene.
Point.
And I love also because she was kind of, like the word you used was like oblivious, maybe, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
She's like great and dear, but she was so oblivious to what her son was going through. And
how could she be? She's soaked up in her depression, right?
know,
Like, I mean, that's one of the things that happens when you're, I mean, attention is such an incredible part of how our lives play out, right? Because which we don't really know what all the sorrow is for her. It's just this, she has depression or whatever.
Well,
but that's so taking up space, I
love that about this movie is the director, the actors, they did such a beautiful job of showing how each of us get absorbed into our own prisons,
islands,
and it's our islands is what he references, right? And it's
the opening dialogue,
and we have these responses that hurt each other, right? These responses that hurt because we can't see outside of our own island, right? Because we're absorbed in it. And I love how they illustrate that so well in this movie, that each of these characters is on this island. And I love how there's numerous times where Marcus is trying to like get off of his island, right? He's trying to come to Will, and he has that patience and that understanding, but also realizing that not all of us can have that patience and understanding when we're in our own prisons at times. I loved how they illustrated that throughout the movie.
I love the first Christmas scene where it's like it's fantastic, ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like the biological father is like, and then like
got him socks.
And then like the dialogue that's happening. But I love what Marcus says, where like the blonde shows up that he was
Susie.
And she's like, oh yeah, you liar, and they start hammering him. And he's like, okay, like I've had enough of this or whatever, I'm out. And Marcus is like, no, like I need you to be here. And like, so what if he lied? Like you have this problem and you have that problem.
Right.
And, like, who freaking cares? So he lied. Like he lied about having a kid so I could meet some girls. Like big deal. Like he's my friend. Like I need him or whatever. I love that whole, and that's also in that same scene. It's the beginnings of the stirrings of Hugh Grant too, because he's like, I'm here, and like it's awkward and weird, but it also like feels good to like just be with some people.
He was pleasantly surprised that he actually enjoyed himself.
Right.
I like how they also have this example of kind of like a generational trauma action going on, where they show Marcus really desiring to do certain things, right? Like he wants to perform at the talent show, even though it's like social suicide, because he's so concerned with his mom, and kind of seeing how that generational trauma can pass down. And I just think, if he didn't have intervention from Will or from other like later in his life, him being affected with anxiety or depression because of that trickle down effect. And I thought that was a really interesting scene when Will, the Hugh Grant character, is with Marcus's mom in the car. And Marcus's mom comes to this realization that, oh my goodness,
oh my gosh, it's been about me.
Look what it's been about me. He's trying to he's doing it for me. He's been self-sacrificing for her.
Right. Willing to complete total social suicide.
Because because he doesn't know because he hasn't had any other like.
Well, he's so sweet, right? Like that's what's
and he's just so sweet. I mean, he's just a kid who wants his mom to be better, and so thinking that he can actually do that. I mean, it's really it really is moving to me, and it made me think, like,
beautiful.
What am I communicating to my children that they are doing things for me instead of for themselves? Like I don't ever want them to betray themselves or have to sacrifice themselves for me. And so it's so eye-opening to like, we talked about this, but made me look at like, what am I not seeing? Because I'm so involved in my own life.
Well, we get stuck in those prisons, right? Where we're really torturing ourselves. And I think that's what's so interesting about you talking about intuitive eating, because I think that if you can come to this understanding of who you are, and find a way to remind yourself of your divine worth, to remind yourself of who you are as a person, what you contribute, and all these other things not mattering, then you can find a way out of that prison more often than not. And I think then that generational trauma doesn't necessarily happen as much, or maybe it's not as intrusive in our children's lives to where they are feeling like they have to this or do that to make us happy, because they care, right? They want to see us happy.
If we're modeling that, then they're gonna internalize that, right? Like if we're modeling a life of connectedness, of groundedness, a life that we don't have this kind of codependent idea of I have to be this, and this to be of value to other people, then they're gonna learn how to connect with themselves, and we're going to give them opportunities, right? We're not going to push them to achieve so that we can feel good about ourselves, or look at my kids and they've done these things, you know what I mean? And so I can feel good that I've done good as a parent because they're doing these things, right?
You know,
and
which think, all enmeshed.
I think the communication is so important in that. Oftentimes I think we think we're protecting others by not communicating, by not sharing what's going on or being open about what's going on. And that in turn, I think, just creates more hurt, more injury, and more issue within our families.
Well, because there can't be accurate understanding, right? Like,
like if I get upset, with my girls, I really try to have a conversation with them at some point and say, hey, I was feeling this. I was feeling weak. I was feeling like I was a bad person. I was feeling like I was failing. I was feeling worried and stressed. And these are the reasons I got upset. And I think oftentimes as parents, maybe we fear talking about certain things because maybe we'll think it will make it worse or make things. And I think that the communication piece is so important. And maybe that was something that I think she was starting to realize throughout the movie, is that, being more open with Marcus and not so much trying to protect him by distancing, but to connect with him through communication would not only help him, but could help her.
Well, and also, I thought it also along those lines, how interesting when he asked her, did you ask me if I wanted to be a vegetarian? Right?
That was a fun scene. Yeah.
I know. And all those things were
like to go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac?
Yeah. Where at first she's like, well, I'd be disappointed if you went to McDonald's. And then fast forward to the end of the movie and she's offering to go to McDonald's and murder a Big Mac, right?
Yeah.
So that growth I thought was so beautiful, where she realizes that like he needs to find his own self.
Yeah.
And that differentiation, right?
Like and maybe his own self wouldn't be wearing rainbow colored
hippie
sweater
hippie
vests
clothes or whatever they call it. Yeah, like, oh my gosh, way Will
a butterfly and a
why did he talk that sweater she wore on that date that Marcus set him up on, and Will
like what was
in
her
his mind
description
talking
of it?
about that hair sweater or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I love Will.
Well, back and forth too of like what Marcus says, like, oh, she's got her hairy whatever thing on.
Yes, the difference, how good she looked, and then Will's like, oh my goodness, what is she wearing?
Who is it? Hopefully it'll be quick, and then he's all like, so for starters,
that was good.
I loved the part when they were just the humor and I swear it's because it's a show with like British people. Why are the British so funny? I don't know. It's because they're so blunt, right?
Yes,
it's because they're so blunt. Yeah. When he was driving behind the ambulance and they had to take her to the hospital, and he was like, I wrote it down because it made me laugh. It was horrible, but driving fast behind the ambulance was fantastic. Everything about it was
so great.
Like, it was the thing, juxtaposition everywhere.
Well, it's because I think that's our experience, right? Like we want to be like, well, it's bad that I'm enjoying and that this is exhilarating. This kid's mom is like like we found her like. Suicide note on her death, right? So I think that's just it, but I think it's so honest, right? Which is what I loved about Marcus's explanation or exclamation at Christmas dinner, because it is like we feel both of these things and we feel bad that we might feel excited about something that's bad or whatever, because there's a mixed bag of emotions happening, you know what I mean? And that it's real. That's real.
I love that we can make that normal. Yeah, we're so dynamic. We're not one-dimensional. We can have multiple feelings at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty. Oh my gosh, that movie made me so happy. Watching it again this weekend.
Was there any particular character that or moment that you most connected with? So there's lots of empathy for lots of the ensemble of characters, but for you, like, what was it that this time around, if you watched it recently again, or just in general, like, that you connected most with, that was meaningful for you, or you loved?
Okay, it's gonna get real here for a second.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
Be intuitive.
So the last couple years, since COVID, everyone else too. I'm not alone. I know that. I'm not special by any means, but just depression has started to creep up in my life, which is very new for me. And when she is crying in the morning, remember how he talks about it's usually at night, but now it's the morning. And there have been times when I have just sat and cried, like, and she can't get the cereal bowl like out of the cupboard, and she's just like, it's so devastating to her and traumatic, and just makes everything worse, Like I related to her so much. I felt so much empathy for her, because it's like, she does not, because I know by experience, she does not want to be there crying in front of her son, like sobbing, but she full on cannot control it. Like, she cannot stop, and every little thing is so hard, like not being able to pull out the cereal bowl. Everything feels so, earth shattering and traumatic, and like you can't overcome anything. And so anyways, I just really, really related to her this last time when I came around watching it this weekend. Like, I just understood, like, when you are that depressed, you can't just suck it up.
Yeah.
You physically can't, as much as you want to. Like, I have been sobbing, driving my girl to dance, sobbing uncontrollably. And I'm trying so hard to stop because I'm traumatizing my poor 11-year-old, but I cannot.
Because she's
and every red light makes me want to end my life. I can't do this.
Anyway. That's intense.
I just loved all the emotion. I just love all the emotion in that movie.
Well, I think that those moments when our kids see that, I think what a beautiful opportunity, once we feel like we can, to go back and just talk to them and say, hey, that's life. It's okay. It happens. It's called being human. And there's nothing wrong with it. And just helping them to see that there's going to be times where we just feel overwhelmed and we don't know if there's an answer, and it's okay to be emotional about it. It's not wrong. It's not bad. And I think what beautiful opportunities that I think sometimes we miss. I feel like in the movie there was opportunities missed. And especially when she was feeling better and she came back, I feel like there was opportunities missed for her to be able to connect with her son and help him, because he's experiencing all these things too at school, right? Being bullied and having a mom that's not really there, just wanting connection, wanting to feel important, feel loved. And I think, what great opportunities, where I think a lot of times we get stuck in the shame of what happened, feeling like, I'm a horrible parent. When actually it's just an opportunity offered to us to be that example and to really enable our children to know that it's going to be okay. And I think that can strengthen them in the future when they have it happen to them, to know, hey, it's not me alone. This happens sometimes and it's okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's really nice. Cause I don't think that I have done that. And I don't think I've realized until you just started talking, Michael, that I haven't done that. And I'm sitting here going, okay, why haven't I done that? Because I thought that in the movie too. I was like, why isn't she talking to him about this? Why are we just proceeding like normal?
Well, it's hard to do that. It's a hard change to engage that. It's a family culture, right? Of just like, of offering explanation, right? Because I was just thinking too, like, I took your life and started to make a movie out of it in my head, and I'm thinking like her going, I guess mom hates having to drive me around everywhere. I'm stressing her out.
Which is part of it.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
But because you could be like, yes, I'm stressed out.
It doesn't make
but I'm
you
also
a bad
committed.
mom.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also committed to supporting something that you love and that you want to do. And we're spending these resources because we want you to.
I think it's that shame, right? Because something like that happens. And I could foresee if I were in your shoes, I would be like, okay, I'm a bad mom. I'm not acting the way I should be acting. I should be strong. I should be this. I should be that. And I think that it's that shame that maybe prevents us from being able to have that discussion later on to say, hey, it's not bad. It's not wrong. I'm not a bad mom because of this, or I'm not an inadequate mom. It's just life. It's what happens. And you're going to experience that in school. You're going to experience that in your future. And it's okay. There's people that experience it. We're here for each other. And I think it's that growth together. And I think that oftentimes, those are missed opportunities that we talk about generational trauma at times, and it's not like purposeful. It's just how life is. And I think that those are moments where we can maybe dissipate that trauma from becoming generational, when we can be open and communicate and be able to have those connections with our kiddos and come at it from, and I feel like the intuitive eating just plays right into this, where it's okay. Like, you're not bad. Yeah. You're not a bad mom. Like, that has nothing to do with being a good or bad mom. It's just life.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an experience.
Well, and I think that's the part that got me this time, which I kind of commented on, of them just sharing the montage of just togetherness, that idea of togetherness. There was another movie recently that I watched. I'm hating that I'm blanking on it, but there was a scene of a character internalizing just this notion of utter aloneness, and it really like rocked me to the core. I was just like crying and crying and crying, not because I felt so alone or feel so alone right now in my life, but just that notion. I don't want people to
Matrix.
feel that.
I think
that was Matrix. It. Thank you, Michael. Because I was actually hoping that Michael would remember.
John and I talk too much.
We talk all the time. Thank you, Michael, for remembering. Yeah, but it was the new Matrix movie, and in the beginning, which I love the Matrix movies. Like, spoiler, if you've not seen the Matrix movies, I want to. But like, Neo's alone, and is been separated from Trinity in the new program that he's in, or whatever the world that's programmed, the new Matrix that he's in. And my heart just, because their relationship is so cool in the three movies, and I love that the new Matrix movie, it's really a love story. It's a beautiful love story. And I was just in the theater and I was sobbing just because I felt such a loss to internalize that I could be in that place, or connecting with Neo being in this place where there she was, but he wasn't connecting with her. And oh my goodness. And so I think that's why the thing I loved about this movie was that time that him and Marcus and what's his bucket are sharing that time where Marcus is just shoving himself into his life. Is just it's just so cool, because it's just togetherness that we just need more opportunities to be around one another and to be okay as who we are. There's so much hating going on right now in pop culture, and it was just such a cool, nice thing to see, even though there's all this kind of ensemble of different characters and contention and all that. I think
you see the height of that really with Will when he's having that dinner date with the Rachel Weisz character.
And he's got like nothing to offer.
Yeah. And she's like pushing him, right? Yeah. She's kind of poking at him because she's triggered, right? So she's poking at him like, hey, this doesn't seem like, what's going on here? Yeah. And then his response is like, I'm nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful.
And I think that's where I connected in the movie, thinking, man, that's how I feel. Like, what do I have to offer? I'm nothing. I'm just bringing someone down. And I think that's that shame that a lot of us feel, and it doesn't help, right? It
never
hurts, and it creates our own
it's just
prison.
A lie.
It hurts
it's
others.
Just a lie.
It is a lie.
Yeah.
It's the worst lie. It's the worst lie told in the universe. And it's a lie that everyone believes on some level, that I'm not worthy of love and belonging.
And I love how Marcus doesn't seem to care. and he just pushes through that shame wall with Will, right? With
he has to, right? Because he needs more people to help watch his mom. So it's like he's so committed. It's like he needs a greater. He needs. Well, one of the things he says, is like he didn't want to go home, right? Like he knew, like he didn't have to go home right after school. He could go there, and he didn't have to confront, like, well, could mom be,
which becomes a
suicidal or dead or
for Will, right? Because Will, otherwise Will, I think after that Rachel Weisz scene, that dinner scene where he would have just slowly gone back to just not being on his own island again.
That's right.
Yeah. And I know that's something that I talk a lot too, like also a parallel with intuitive eating that comes up is, with accepting yourself as you are. And do we all have that deep desire to just be loved and accepted for exactly who we are? Right? Like, I think that is just a deep
it is. It's
need.
Core.
It is core. And so part of intuitive eating is learning to do that for yourself, right? Learning to love and accept yourself for exactly who you are and not thinking you need to be a work in progress, right? Or a body to be fixed. And so there's so many layers, right? There's so many layers that get stacked on top of that. We have to peel off, and it is a lot of work.
Well, in culture and media, nothing supports
nothing
that.
supports that. Yeah.
And so it's very hard to believe when you have, depending on how old the person is you're working with, or even for ourselves, you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of being trained.
Yes.
One way. And then now it's like, well, we're trying to come to terms with maybe what is the truth, which is we are enough.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to help your brain see elsewise. And a lot of that goes into just central nervous system, like you were saying, parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, how our brain interacts. And our brain wants to stay status quo. It wants to stay with what it's familiar with. And so it naturally just goes straight back to fear, staying in those stuck places. And it's uncomfortable to come out of it. But what we have to understand is pushing that discomfort, even though it's scary, it can result in greater peace and comfort in our lives.
It's a really interesting battle, right? Because there is this part of, I absolutely need to accept and embrace myself for who I am and see my value and good. But at least for me, there's also this component of I want to grow, and not because I need to be more valuable and then worthy of love, but just this part of me that wants to gain more capability, more competence, learn more about the world, influence the world in good ways, just to be a person of value, right? And it's a really interesting tug, between connecting and seeing myself as a person of value, but then also, there is this need for growth and developing competence and going into the world and mastering and progressing. It's a really interesting
But maybe that
thing.
happens naturally, like within intuitive eating. It just the eating part comes natural. And I think that's hard to help people understand, right? Is if you can let go and love yourself, you don't have to worry about falling short. That's going to come natural.
That's just
You're going to contribute, right?
Yeah, well, I think you can't really do great things if you're so apprehensive about what is it going to mean if I fail, right? Like so it's the discovery and confidence with I'm okay to fail in front of everybody else, and then you can dynamically go learn, because if you're going to be apprehensive about falling down in front of somebody, then you're not going to pursue the growth. So to me, I see it as such an intuitive point. Or such an important point in this idea of intuitiveness, because when that confidence is there, you'll dare to go do something dynamic. Like you can really allow yourself to be passionate about wanting to make something better in the world and believing that you could actually be the instrument, not because you need to achieve that so then other people will like you or you'll make lots of money or whatever it is that, but that you just do that from a sense of like, no, I'm going to be the guy that wants to cure cancer. Like I'm hungry about that. I'm excited about that. I think it's a solvable problem. I want to be engaged in that. And I think that sense of intuitiveness and self-acceptance gives you the power and capability to be able to do that to the degree you need to. Otherwise, you're just apprehensive and holding back and doubting. And you know what I mean? Does that make sense? And so I think that there's a really interesting pull, because in that strive for that, we get all muddied and it's like, oh, if I don't do this right, I'm not of value and worth. It's really interesting.
Right. The intention behind it, having to prove something versus coming from just innately in you wanting to do something.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is for me for therapy. Like I don't think I'm a therapist because I need the affirmation, validation that I am able to help people. I think that I became a therapist because I really wanted people to connect with who they are and that they can grow and that it's okay and that we get traumatized. And I want to be someone that people can feel heard and have ideas to challenge the shame, that's intuitively why I'm here, doing this or even talking about this kind of stuff, because I hope it, somebody hears something that helps them, and not because I mean, it's nice when people say that you're nice or good at something, but it's a really interesting balance, right? Because we also do want and need confirmation that we're of value, but it can't be all not confirmation, and it can't, because then you're just narcissistic, and it can't be all confirmation, right? Because then you're just completely codependent,
Right.
Well, and that's why connection is so important, because we ultimately, as human beings, can't do it on our own. We need connection with others. And that assistance really is what gets us to the end. Otherwise, it's unbearable. It's torture.
That is the most horrible, torturous hole of darkness and loneliness. Yeah.
Like what Keanu went through. Yeah. That feeling of, hopelessness. Yeah. Aloneness. I have a quick question for you guys.
Sure.
I have been mulling this over for years, and I don't know that there is a right answer, but I'm curious, and it came up again from this movie that we watched, is, the phrase, it takes a village. So I've heard people really hate that phrase. No, it doesn't, because then you're involved in telling me what to, right? Like, especially when it comes to raising your children, specifically, is that phrase. I think Hillary Clinton used it back in the day, and it caused a lot of people were not happy. And I just remember, because no one's going to be happy when someone else says something that you don't like, says something. Anyways.
Especially the person on the other team. Yeah. Everything they say is evil.
Exactly.
And terrible and must not be true.
Right. So I don't think there's a black and white answer to this. I'm just curious of what your take is on. Obviously, in Marcus's situation, he needed someone else. He
needed Hugh Grant, man, like for real. And
Hugh needed him.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I find that really interesting. Do you think? And John, this is interesting to you too, since you homeschool, because there's a big belief out there that we need schools involved in our lives, right? And some people think you need more government involvement. Anyway, I know this is another huge could be its own podcast, but I'm just curious of what do you think that phrase means? How about that? What do you think it means when you hear it takes a village?
Sure. Michael, you want to jump first, or you want me to go first?
I don't know that I really have a feeling over that statement, like one way or the other. I don't think I care.
Okay.
And I don't really ever think about it, but I'm also I'm not really political in that way. I kind of I don't know. What someone says something, I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Why? I just want to understand. Okay. But I think for me, my mind always goes to we need connection.
Okay.
As human beings. And for me, it's not just a scientific thing or it's not just a physical thing. It's a spiritual thing also. And so we need connection. Connection meaning we need to feel accepted and we need to feel of worth. And it goes beyond just me saying I'm acceptable and of worth. I need that with others. And that releases oxytocin. That releases hormones in my body that heal and that allow me to find peace and comfort. So I don't know, like with that statement, I could see, I don't know that it takes a village, but I think maybe a better way to look at it would be there's going to be benefits from community or more than just an individual in that growth process. But there's also other things that come with communities that aren't beneficial, but that's okay, right? It's okay when that happens. We have that all the time. We've been talking about that really the whole podcast today is how do we manage these things that come up in our lives in a way that doesn't create the generational trauma but maybe creates understanding, connection, and realization that, hey, we all experience these things and we're not alone in it. So I don't know if that I might be skirted around that. Or...
No. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I think I'm on the same. I think I understand the apprehension that people might have to that idea, especially if we were going to take it in the political sense.
Right.
So I'll stay out of that side, but I absolutely think that I think in the sincerity of the term, individuals, I suppose, can grow up in purely self, conquering the world kind of way. And I absolutely am all about what do I need to do to make my life better. But I absolutely think you need a community. You know what I mean? I think you need a place to belong. I think you need a place that you can do something that makes it better, that isn't about you. And so if you don't have a village, let's say, it takes a village. It's like, you need to be in a village. Like, like how do I have meaning if I'm, cause like in a neighborhood, like somebody is working to keep the lights on and somebody is making sure that water comes to your house and somebody is bringing the groceries to the grocery store. So we all get paid to do these things, but like we need them. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, we need this communal environment to be in. Like that's the nature of being we are. If we don't have relational experiences, we're feral children. We don't have language. We are incapable. We're just a blob. You know what I mean? Yeah. So humans need relationships so they know what they are, and we grew to what we are because we have this other thing to work against. So I don't think, I'm sorry, Michael.
I feel like that's like if we talk movie or use movies as an example, I feel like Castaway with Tom Hanks is a great example of, getting through something. He needed community. He created it, right?
Yeah, he did.
To where Wilson became a real tangible thing to him that when Wilson was lost, it was just horrific. It was like he lost a living person, right?
Yeah.
And I think
I bawled when he lost Wilson.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, even in situations where we don't have that, just to survive, we tend to create it.
Yeah. Yeah, we need an other.
Which is what Marcus did.
Yeah.
He isn't that so interesting how innate that was for him? He I need more people.
Yeah.
Yes.
This isn't
exactly. Because I can't do it. Because he was overwhelmed.
Yes.
He was like
a child.
He was a child. I don't know how to. I can't watch her all the time.
I can't fix her. Yeah.
Right. So he's like, he needed other people as this, and I think that's
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that notion of it takes a village, like. Yeah, I mean, I feel most responsible for my kids and providing them, and I think I should have the power and authority and the final, responsibility for that. But I don't know how I raise my kids. I mean, I count on people in my community to reach my kids in ways that I'm struggling not to. And other people have reached my kids and helped them. I mean, there's been figures in Emmanuel's life, you know, that have had huge impacts on him in a positive way. And I'm so grateful that they're there. And I know for me, like, you know, I wasn't getting my emotional needs met in my family. And thankfully, there were people in my community through school. I had a teacher that became aware and took some interest. And, you know, I've had other people that have brought me in. So I don't know how we don't. If we don't have a neighborhood. We were talking a little bit about that with our previous podcast, you know, like we need a neighborhood, you know, neighborhoods. And I think it's something that's being lost, which is what I thought would be the negative consequence of what's going on with COVID, with the isolation stuff. You know, I'm not a doctor and I can't speak to all that, but as a therapist, I thought to myself, if we do this, I can see that it's going to be worse.
Right.
You know, for us as communities and people to be isolated. You know, it's like we need to be safe so we don't get ill. It's like, I get it. But we also need to be with people or we get emotionally ill, which can lead to physical death in all kinds of other ways. So I absolutely do. You know, cool thought. Cool question. Thanks for asking us something, which, by the way, is also why I love the Hills, because they were an awesome society of friends, and we miss them horribly. Alicia, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, guys.
We definitely have a lot to talk about. We should maybe have you on again and talk more about other stuff. It was super fun. So we could tackle your other movie that we didn't talk about that would play more into the intuitive.
I would love for you guys to watch that.
I watched it a while back when it came out.
I haven't seen it.
It was good.
Okay, good. Yeah. It is really, it's good. Okay. I'll come
Thank you, Alicia.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, John. It was so nice to meet you.